Hey everybody, it's your good buddy Spider. We're back again with another episode of the show. Let's talk about the madness. I know this is relatively quick after the last one, to be honest. I mean, they've been coming out a little bit quicker than I usually do. I guess I've had more inspiration, more things to talk about. This is an expanded edition to build off of the last episode. Pardon me, I'm developing a lisp, I guess. I don't know. The last episode was about my childhood, leading all the way up to today, with some glossing over of some parts. And this episode is going to be about my professional career as an entertainer. We're going to be cutting out all of the... Well, I'm probably going to mention some of the jobs I had because I talked about them in the last episode. But I'm going to talk about mostly what I've been doing as a musician and as a radio personality. And now I guess as a YouTuber. I don't know. I don't see myself as a YouTuber per se. I'm just a guy who does YouTube, and it's been pretty successful so far. But I don't know. I don't really see the reason to define it, I guess. But it's been warm. Summer again. I might have mentioned it in the last episode. Summer is definitely here in Ohio. We've had a lot of warm days. I've got all the air conditioners in that need to be in various parts of the house for the people that need it. And it's still been rainy. I think it's going to be a rainy, stormy summer. We're going to have hot days and we're going to have wet days. And that's going to be pretty much it. So, yeah. That's what's going to happen. So where do we start today? Once again, thank you, as always, for everybody who's supported me. My subscriber numbers are continuing to increase across all platforms, and I appreciate it. YouTube is growing like crazy. Absolutely crazy. And it's a great thing to see. It's a fabulous thing to see. I did an Ask Me Anything event, an AMA, on June 3rd. I don't remember if the last episode was before or after June 3rd. So I might have told you about it, I might not have, but if you missed it, the replay is up on YouTube. You can watch it now. It was lively. After the first 20 minutes or so, it started picking up, and I answered a lot of questions. We had a lot of fun. So if you haven't heard it yet, go to the YouTube. Spider Does Things. You should be subscribed if you're not already. I don't know why you wouldn't be. It's full of great things. There's also merch. Shop ltatm.com. We have a domain now. You can buy t-shirts, mugs, shower curtains, posters, stickers, hoodies, tank tops, all kinds of other things that you might want. Some of them feature album art from my various Spider in the Hole albums. Some of them feature goblins for fun. I think I'm going to make the goblin a mascot. I think that would be fitting. That would fit the status of the real-life goblin to be a mascot for my shows and my material and my juggernaut of everything that I do. I think that's a fitting place, like a court jester, almost. You can also get This Uncanny Earth t-shirts and tank tops and hoodies and stickers, Big Buff Records, all the various things I'm involved with. You can get merchandise for. Shop ltatm.com for your fashion needs, or if you just like stickers. There's something else I should address, probably. This is going to be a little controversial for some people, I know. It's already been controversial. I mentioned it today. I mentioned it today. Let me get that cat off of there. Get down. Get down. No, don't do that. He's old, and he thinks he's just going to poop places because he's old, and that's something important that he shouldn't be doing. Let me go get him. Get down. Get down. Come on. Nope. Nope. Come on. How many times have you listened to a podcast and the host had to get up and interrupt his cat taking a poop somewhere? Only this one. Only this one. That's how you know it's authentic. That's the difference between my LTATM and those other ones. Because mine's authentic. It's not overproduced. It's not full of fluff and nonsense. It's real time, real thoughts. Anyway, some controversy. A few days ago, as of this recording, I'm recording this on the 17th of June. So a few days ago, it was the 14th of June. Which, they had this, when I say they, I mean multiple people across multiple states and multiple cities, coordinated via social media, to have national protests against the current presidential administration. Which I did not vote for. Okay. So before people start attacking me for whatever, I didn't vote for it. Don't come at me like I'm an apologist or I'm a defender or whatever. Okay? Disclaimer, right? Didn't vote for it. Not my responsibility. Not my fault. Okay? So I did not go out for the protests and things, right? I don't do that kind of thing because I see that as kind of pointless. These days, nobody really listens to protests. They didn't listen to them the last time in 2016 when people were mad about this same person. Nobody listens. Nobody cares. You can't make change that way. You have to do things within the system. And because people didn't do things within the system, they wanted to work outside of the system. That's why things are busted right now. You only got yourself to blame. Okay? You could have voted for better representatives because the representatives are the people who could have prevented the things that you don't like. But you didn't vote for better representatives. You voted for people who aren't going to do nothing. So by participating in a system that's inherently broken, you only have yourself to blame. Right? Right. You're going to be mad about it, but that's how it is. So, starting this episode with a bunch of, hate mail I'm going to get from people, alright. So I didn't go out and participate in any of that. And after the fact, I would see stories from one side that said, oh, there were so many people, it was such a success, they're going to hear our voice, we're got a movement that can't be stopped, ah. And on the other side, they would say things like, oh, I heard all these protests were pretty poorly attended and nobody went, ha ha ha, it's so funny. And they both have video and pictures and whatnot to support what their propaganda is, because it's all propaganda from both sides. So I was interested, so I looked up some statistics. The estimated number of people who took part in the protests, I'm not even going to dignify them by giving them the name that they were given, because I don't... You'll find out in a minute. But the number of people who took participation was estimated at around 13 million. I don't know how they came up with that. I don't know if they went by sign-ups of people who went or just a head count or what they did. So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. That's a lot of people, right? That's an awful lot of people. How does that compare to the total population of the United States? What percentage of the population went out and is upset about all this? Okay? The population of the United States is 342. So, 342 million. Not 342 people, but 342 million. So you take that, you do some calculations, and the percentage of people who took part in these protests is less than 4%. It's roughly 3.9. And that's not very many. I mean, you hear a number like 13 million, and yeah, that's a lot of people. But compared to the total number of people in the United States that could have participated but didn't, and it was on a weekend. Because one of the defenses is, a lot of people, they have to work essential jobs and they couldn't get off work. A lot of people also have the weekend off and chose not to go. Okay? Less than 4% is not very much. And I mentioned this on Facebook, and of course, some random people that were on my friends list wanted to argue about it. And I didn't present it in a way that I thought was confrontational. I wasn't saying that, look at all this, see, you're a bunch of doofuses. I didn't insult anybody. I didn't say they shouldn't have done it. I didn't say, I didn't go out of my way to be a jerk about it. I was just like, well, it doesn't seem very much. It seems like the majority was firmly on the people that didn't go, right? But somebody unfriended me on Facebook. It's somebody I barely knew. So, it's not a big deal. I barely knew them. They're obviously somebody who is deeply involved in the activism side of things. So I watched their post when they friended me, and I haven't commented on a lot of their political things because, people are just going to be mad. But so they unfriended me, and I lost 2 followers on Facebook, which is not a big deal. Facebook is small potatoes these days. YouTube and all these other places where we're at. And I've been entertaining in all my other areas because I'm an entertainer. I'm not a political commentator. I mean, I'm talking about it right now. But I'm not that. I follow politics for my own understanding and for my own knowledge to make sure I'm keeping an eye on the state of the world, right? I don't follow politics so that I can discuss them with people. Because it's nearly impossible to discuss these kind of things with people. Nobody wants to talk about them. They just want to argue about them. If you don't agree instantly, you're obviously on the other side. The implication from this person that unfriended me was that because I didn't take part in the protests, or because I was downplaying them by saying that they were less than 4%, which is true, was that I was condoning terrible things and that I was an awful person. I mean, I'm probably an awful person, but not for those reasons. Like I said, I didn't vote for the person. But anyway, so that happened recently, and I did not take part. And if you did, that's great for you. Whatever. If you feel good about yourself, hey, I got nothing to say about it. I'm not going to yell at you about it. I don't think it was really worth your time, but you don't have to agree with me. That's the great thing. You don't have to agree with me. If you 100% believe it was worth your time, then who am I? I'm just some guy on the internet. It don't matter. Right? As long as you feel good about it and you felt that you made a difference, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what I say. But, so anyway, that's the controversy part of the show. And if you've tuned out because you're mad because I didn't take part in the protest or because I said that they were pointless, then I guess I won't miss you too much. You're missing out on a great show. I wish you could have stayed, but people do what they want to do, and I'm not going to be upset about it. Moving on. Let's go back. My phone's going nuts here. My phone, Steven the intern, Steven the intern is just blasting me with messages on my phone right now. Because he must be off work and he's got nothing to do. No, I'm not saying that in a way like, man, you got nothing better to do than to message me. I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying that all of a sudden he's seeing a bunch of messages and he's blowing up my phone. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. Don't let anybody say anything else about it. He's a good kid. But let's go back let's go back to 1999. 1999. And I mentioned this, and I went through parts of it in the last episode. 1999 was when I decided, hey, I want to be in a band. I want to make rock and roll music. I want to do songs, and I started writing lyrics and things while I was in school. And I had the that was my hand slapping my forehead because there was a fly up there. Don't mind me. Sound effects. I had the MTV music generator for my PlayStation, and I was recording songs from the loops that were included. And then I was wandering through a Kmart, as I said in the last episode, and I found a PC copy of the game, which had MP3 export functionality, which means you can actually take the tracks out of the program and send them to people on the snazzy internet that was around at the time. So 1999, I start making tracks on my computer. And I would record them on a standard PC microphone. It looked like a stick with a nub at the end, because this was only used for like making calls if you had phone software for your internet on your computer, or if you were doing conferencing, which was very new at the time, with other people, like audio chat and things like that. Games very rarely had that kind of functionality, but some of the multiplayer games at the time had started to do headsets and microphones. It was not built for singing. It just wasn't. But it did an admirable job. I would wait till my family went to sleep real late, and I would sing in the family room where the computer was, recording vocals to my songs. And I don't have very much from that, because I suffered a computer crash some years later that got rid of a lot of that stuff. Unfortunately, wiped my hard drive. I'll get to that. But so I started doing songs way back in the day using that program. And I would give MP3s out to my friends. I'd try to get interest. I was not at all the juggernaut of musical stuff that I became later. Fast forward a little bit. 2001, I graduated. I don't know if I moved out that year or if I moved out in 2002. I don't remember the exact time frame. But I moved to the nearby town of Conneaut, Ohio. It was very close to Lake Erie. You could drive down there. It took like 5 minutes. And he's still sending me messages. He's excitable. He's an excitable guy. I moved there to live in a duplex. I was in one half, and I was working at the Perkins family restaurant at the time. I was a dishwasher. And I knew a cook, and I knew the assistant manager, and there was a second assistant manager who lived on the other side of this duplex with her family and her husband. And they were talking with the other assistant manager because he was like, I gotta get out of my apartment. He had a studio apartment over a grocery store. He was trying to get out. I was trying to move out. The cook was trying to get out of where he was. So we were all trying to... And the lady was like, hey, why don't you just move next door? The people there are going to be moving out. You guys can just split the rent. It's got 3 bedrooms. So we were like, all right. So we did. We all moved in there. I took the computer with me. because nobody else really used it as much. My dad had another computer that was more up to date that he used for himself. This had been more like the family computer for school projects and things, and my sisters really didn't use it too much anymore, so I took it with me. And so my new room in the duplex became my new studio, basically. I got a slightly better microphone, better headset, some better speakers. Nothing on the lines of like a full recording studio or anything like that. But I started to do other things. I got new software. I got a copy of the Sony Acid digital audio workstation. And it had its own loops and various things that I could download, and I started playing with that, making brand new songs. And some of those songs eventually went on the first album. Some of those songs that were written around that time, in the 2002 to 2005 range, ended up on the very first official release. But I started playing songs, messing around with it. Not too long after that is when I got the offer to join Beneath the Scars. Beneath the Scars was a metal band that one of my high school and elementary school friends was in. He was the vocalist. And they played in Pennsylvania, which was not very far. It was like 20 miles the opposite direction. Because remember, where I lived was right on the border, basically, of Ohio and Pennsylvania. But they were based out of Pennsylvania on that side. And he said, we need a keyboard player. We're thinking about changing our sound a little bit. Because they had started off as a Slayer cover band. And they would play some other things. Like they'd play some Korn and some Pantera. But they were into the real heavy, like, Slayer type metal stuff. So, but they were looking to kind of change up the sound a little bit. So he said, hey, you should come out. You should come to a practice. You bring your keyboard and we'll see how it goes. So I did. Played a little bit for them. They were impressed enough that they were like, hey, you can join. And I was with them until I moved to Akron, because I had to quit the band to move to Akron because there was no way I was going to be able to make practice that far away. Because Akron, Ohio, was 2.5 hours away from where they would practice. 3 hours sometimes, depending on traffic. But we played a lot of shows, and I'm not trying to overblow my importance in the band, but it was my addition of the keys that added a new dimension that gave the band the signature sound that we ended up with for while I was there. And I'm not saying I did anything super technical either, right? It's just what I did added that layer that was missing. They were already good without me. There's no question. But with me in the band, it boosted them to the point where everything was in sync. Everything was like, this is how we want to write songs. And we played a lot of stuff. Like, we opened for Mushroom Head. We opened for 216, which is kind of like Mushroom Head. We played at Peabody's in Cleveland before they shut down. I hated playing at Peabody's. We played at the Cove in Geneva. Geneva on the Lake, Ohio. We were a force to be reckoned with in the area. And a lot of the people from that band are still out in other bands right now, out in that area, doing pretty great things. They're putting on festivals and they're playing out all the time, and it's the legacy of that band lives on to this day, whether I'm involved in it or not. And I was tinkering with my own stuff on the side while that was happening. But I didn't get too serious in it because I was busy. I was doing this. So then came the time to to that I had to move, and so I did. I told you guys last time in the last show I moved for a relationship that eventually that fell apart pretty quickly, actually, of really no fault of my own. And I don't mean to say that in a way like I was completely blameless, but I was not the catalyst for the whole thing falling apart. So, and I feel pretty vindicated by all that anyway. But I was still writing at the time. I was still doing the album. I was trying to release my first album around the time. So, anyway, got together with the girl that I'm with now. We've been together 16 years now, give or take. But that first album was called The End of an Era. And it released, let me check my Bandcamp here, because my Bandcamp has all my albums listed here. Let me see what I've got listed as the original release date. I've got the remastered one up here. The remastered was released in 2012. I think it was actually released in 2009, to be honest. I think. But half the album has a certain kind of sound, and half the album has another kind of sound, because since the breakup happened when I was halfway through writing the songs, it affected the tone of the songs and the direction of the lyrics, so it's kind of unbalanced. But I put that out, I believe in 2009, I think. And it didn't go anywhere. I mean, my entire music career has been very small as far as attention goes, because I've never had the resources for promotion, because you have to have money to promote effectively. I never had that much. I've always had enough to cover my essentials and, you know, get things that I need to and do a little bit extra here or there. And I didn't have enough people on my side to be like, yeah, we're going to help you push this, we're going to help you promote that, because I don't think people ever really believed in the project. They probably just thought it was some vanity thing of mine. They were like, okay, the songs are alright, we're not really into it though. But they were too polite to tell me. Which continues to this day. People don't tell me the truth straight off, usually, about my music. But that's kind of irrelevant. But I put it out. I got physical copies, because Amazon used to make physical copies of the album when I got it submitted to Amazon, so that was cool. I have the first copy framed on my wall right now. I can look at it from here, along with one of my posters. The original album art and the original album are there on the wall. And so the second album after that, of course, was Mood Ring. And Mood Ring was entirely different, because Mood Ring was after that relationship had soured, and I was with the girl I'm with now. And so it was more kind of like, it was more angry, it was more like, about things. Oh, the cat in there, man, goodness. Psst. Psst. Come on, man. Psst. Psst. You're pushing the buttons. Psst. Psst. He's probably 15 years old, and he's beyond the point of caring. It's constant effort to clean up after him all the time. He's the only one that does it, because he's always mad about something. Anyway, can we not have more cat droppings on this episode. People are going to be like, oh, your house must be awful. No, I clean it up. I'm constantly using my floor scrubber at least once a month to clean up after this kind of stuff. I need new carpets. I need to just get rid of all my carpets because they're discolored and they're old and they're just worn out and they're flimsy and they just need to be replaced with nice tile or something that I can just wipe up with a hand towel. So Mood Ring came out, difference in tone. And sometime with the first album, I'd gotten picked up. I say picked up, but this didn't end the way that I had hoped it was going to. It did help in the long term, and I learned a lot. But I got a call from an A&R talent scout. That's artist in relations, artist in something or other, artist in development person, AR. From a talent scout in California. And they said, yeah, we'd like you to join our roster. It wasn't like a record label. It was a company called A&R Select. I have no idea if they're even still around anymore. Who knows? But he calls me and says, yeah, it's we're going to help you get your tracks distributed. We're going to get you on all these things on Amazon, on wherever. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. And I had to pay $300 for a lifetime membership in A&R Select. I only had to pay it once. And you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, okay, I know where this is going. And yep, that's basically where it went. I paid them that. They told me some instructions on how to get into the distribution network and all that other kind of stuff, which was basically all things that a person could do by themselves. All they did was provide me with the knowledge to access the websites I needed to. But they weren't private websites. They weren't things that you needed to be a special member to do. All you had to do was sign up and you could access them. And that's how I got connected to TuneCore, who's my distributor software. They distribute my tracks to Spotify, to YouTube, to Amazon, to Apple, to iTunes, to Google, to everywhere. I'm still using them today, which shows you that it was an important thing I needed to get access to. But I could have stumbled upon them myself. So, and after a while I didn't hear from the people anymore. They didn't communicate with email. It didn't matter, and I gave up on it. But I was able to distribute my music and my tracks from then on my own, which I did. I still do. I'm 100% self-owned as far as my rights and my various royalties and whatnot. All that goes straight to me. I'm not beholden to anybody. So, but, hey, there's a big cat up here. So Mood Ring comes out, it's angrier because it's dealing with the aftermath of the breakup and everything like that, and I'm moving in a different direction. And a lot of good tracks on that. The next album that came out, I believe, was God of Secrets, which was my first concept album. This album was disconnected from all my various struggles and whatnot. It had a few callbacks to that kind of stuff, and because every album I put out is based on feelings that I have and situations that I've been in, and you know, I put myself into each of the songs, but I build characters in the songs. The characters are me, but they aren't me. They're a part of my personality, or they're a part of something I've gone through. So God of Secrets, the story was, there was a guy who was lost out in somewhere, some wilderness, and he finds this house, this big manor house, and he goes in, and basically it's like a Faust kind of thing. He's like the devil, basically, or some kind of creature. And he says, hey, yeah, you know what? This is the House of Secrets. We've got all kinds of things here. You can leave your secrets here, and you can join. You know, you don't have to worry about anything. And each track is like a different character dealing with things that they've done, sort of, and problems in their life. And then by the end, the guy's basically like a broken mess and everything. It's very industrial. It's very heavy in parts. Very, I don't know. It's a good album, if I do say so myself. And I learned some new engineering techniques. It's over compressed, so it's got some issues. But I was still learning. I'm my own engineer and my own, you know. I do everything. I still do everything myself. And that came out in 2011. So, End of an Era was 2009, Mood Ring was 2010, and this was 2011. I was pushing them out pretty quick. It was about the time that came out that I actually played a few shows, my first shows. I played at a Hot Topic store in a mall that used to be around here. It's the mall where I used to work at a Sears store that closed down when the company went belly up. But they had a Hot Topic, and they were looking for mostly like acoustic and DJ kind of stuff. And I was like, well, I play some music, so I signed up for it, and I played a show there. And that went over pretty well. I was scheduled to do another show, but I had to cancel at the last minute because apparently there was a leak under the sink of my apartment. I was an upstairs apartment, and the sink was leaking, and it leaked down into the neighbor's, the downstairs neighbor's apartment, and flooded his house, his apartment. So I had to go, and I had to deal with that, and then I didn't play there. They stopped doing that program not too long after. Now there's another cat crying because he couldn't get on my lap. He's mad. But then I played at... Oh, for goodness sake. Oh. Hold on. What are you doing? What are you doing? Go on. Leave that alone. You know what this episode should be called? This episode should be called Night of the Interrupting Cats. Because this is a different cat entirely. He was going over there, throwing himself against my daughter's door. He does that sometimes. I don't know. He gets weird. She's fine, by the way. It's not like he has some sixth sense like she's in trouble, because she's not. He does this. But I was able to play a festival. And I ended up playing this festival like 2 or 3 years in a row. It was called Freedom Fest. And you might be wondering, like, well, Freedom Fest? Okay. But it was put on by a guy who was a veteran who wanted to put, like, the proceeds went towards veterans' mental health and things like that, right? Well, I played there for the first time in front of a large crowd, and that was kind of cool. And then over the years afterwards, I put out a lot of albums. I gotta find the dates on these. I Bring the Darkness was in 2014. That's one of my favorites. Annihilator came out in 2013. Annihilator was supposed to be called Life After Death. And it was supposed to be acoustic-y, piano-driven, about my life. And some of it was like that, but some of it wasn't. It went all kinds of different directions. It was a lot of things. Then Last Great Heresy of 1999 was in 2014. That was a fun one. That got into some real avant-garde kind of stuff. It had a lot of things based on tracks that I had made in 99 that weren't finished. So I went back and revisited a lot of old things and remade them, and that's why it was called what it was. After that, we had Aeons. And Aeons was released in 2015, and it was the most difficult album I've ever done, both mentally, both engineering-wise. It was supposed to be, the concept for the album was about the conflict between organic and synthetic, about how everything was becoming digital and people were becoming less like people and more like machines and things of that nature. And it was all this big sci-fi kind of deal. My daughter had been born in 2014. And it had been a struggle as she was going through those first couple years of life between me and her mom and just life in general. And I was in a really awful place in my brain. I was in a real bad place. And so as I was writing this album, more and more of that inner turmoil got out into the songs, and it became therapeutic, cathartic in a way. It was something that I had to get out of my system because I was slowly kind of falling apart. I couldn't deal with everything. I couldn't deal with being a new dad. I couldn't deal with, everything that was just up in the air. Finances being bad, and it was rough. It was a rough time. And so the album reflects all of the worst of what was going on through my head at the time. And to this day, she can't listen to it. We've been together, like I said, 15, 16 years. And she usually listens to every one of my albums. Even she doesn't like every single song, but she's usually supportive of all of them. She couldn't finish this one. When I got it done, she listened to maybe half of it, and she stopped, and she was like, I can't go on anymore. It hits too close to home. There's too much going on here. It hurts. And I said, I get that, because that's what it was, writing it. It was a painful experience. And it has some of my best songs on it. It has some of my best tracks. Ronin, Dead Dreams, Infinite. That's a dark song. Boundaries. Ugh. It's such a difficult album to get through. But it was important. It was something that mattered. It had to get out there. In 2016 saw Gatecrasher, which was a return to form. I went back to a concept album. This is an album about space pirates and robots and warlords on Mars and things like that. And it was a fun album to do. It's a fun album to do. After that, I did Abaddon's Wake, which is, it's a really... I didn't think so at the time, but the more I reflect on it, the more I reflect on this album, because it came out in 2017, it's a really difficult album. It wasn't like it's got difficult concepts and things. It wasn't like it was particularly emotional, but there's a lot of stuff on it that just, it's kind of disjointed. It's kind of all over the place. It deals with a lot of stuff that I was doing at the time, but it was, I don't know. It's a strange album in my catalog because it's got this just layer of just darkness to it. But it's worth a listen. It has some great songs on it. Abaddon's Wake, the title track, is sort of a dedication to Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, who both took their own lives around the time that I'd been doing this album. So it starts off, that's the lead-in track, so of course it's going to be a bit dark from there. And after that, of course, we get to Pyromancer, which is the newest album. I say it's the newest, but it's been a couple years now. It came out in 2019, and I haven't put out an album since then, which is a long time for me. Pyromancer got back to some feelings I was having. A lot of the tracks are about a dog that I had to put down, and I still feel bad about it. Like, I always second guess myself. Was there something else I could have done? I couldn't pay for anything. We didn't have much money at the time. That's been a recurring theme of my life. I couldn't pay to give her the care that the veterinarians were asking for. We went to 3 different veterinarians that day. But I still feel like maybe there was something that I could have done instead of giving them the go-ahead to do what they did. And I'm going to feel bad about that for the rest of my life. And people can say, oh, well, it's just a dog. It's not just a dog. She was an animal that depended on me, and I feel like I let her down. So. But there's that. And I played other shows throughout that time. I played a show at a place in Canton called The Oracle during I believe it was while I was doing Annihilator. Maybe it was after Last Great Heresy came out, because I played Destroyer, and Destroyer was on that. Might have played a couple other little places, and I played a few places since then now. But that long rambling story, the point was, I did not get big. I did not get famous. To this day, the royalties that I collect from my music being out there on streaming services and being in the wild, I make per year probably less than $50 a year. Give or take. Lifetime, I've made maybe $400 or $500 in total over the lifetime of my music being out there. And you can say, well, maybe that's because you didn't have a label behind you to push you and, to give you the promo that you needed. Maybe. I don't know. So, the point of all of that is that I was not a successful, in terms of finances, I'm not a successful musician. I've made a lot of music that I enjoyed, and some music that other people have enjoyed. And I'm probably still going to make more music in my lifetime. If I can get the time to sit down and do it, I have more ideas. But I was not a successful performer, right? Now, around, let's see, let me take a look at the time frames here on the albums. Around the time that Gatecrasher was going to be coming out was when I first got into radio. And there's a person out there who's going to be mad that I talk about this, because she's mad about everything I do, because she doesn't like anything that I do, because she feels like I'm bullying her or something, which is quite the opposite, and you'll find out. But I was putting my music out on a service called MusicSubmit.com, which sends your tracks to... It's got a central database that allows people who do reviews, who do like record labels, who like all these people can access it and listen to songs and decide if they're interested. Radio hosts, whatnot. I didn't get a lot of notice there. I did use their service myself, but I'll get to that. Other than just for me, like I used their service to find other artists, but I'll get to that. I got a message through there, or through my regular email. I don't remember how I received the message. It was an email from a lady who said, "Hey, I've got a radio. I'm starting a radio station. I'm doing interviews with independent musicians and things like that. I'd like to, I'd like to feature you." And the first email I got, I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't pay much attention to it because I got stuff like that a lot, and none of it panned out. I would email back and then never hear anything. So I was kind of cynical about it, like I usually still am. But she sent me another email, and she was like, "Hey, you know what? I've sent you this. I need to know. Hey, can I get you on board? Like, do you want to be on the show? Can I interview?" And so that time I was like, all right, it's more than one email, and let's set something up. That was my first experience with Let's Talk About the Music. It was the first time I'd heard of, I want to say them, but it wasn't them. It was just her, the person who owns it, and the LTATM acronym, which I've basically taken for myself these days. I'll get to that part of the story. But I was on episode 10 as a guest, talking about my music and talking about the difference between electronic and digital. And as far as, or not electronic and digital, but analog and digital, and how you can create music nowadays with just a computer versus people who have the instruments and everything like that. And it went well. I mean, we got along. She was personable, and she was doing more shows after that. And I don't remember exactly how the conversation got on, but we kept in contact after that through email, maybe through messenger services. I don't remember which one I was using at the time. I don't know. I've used AOL and Yahoo in the past, but I think I was on Facebook at this point. And she said, "Hey, I need to get a co-host because it's hard to do all this stuff by myself." And so I believe I volunteered. I was like, well, I can come back. I don't have anything else going on right now. I could, if you want, I could try to do a semi-regular thing until you find somebody else. Because that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be temporary. It was just supposed to be until she found somebody else. So a few episodes later, I showed up as a co-host with, helping interview the musicians. And from then on, we were a team. We were a team for about 4 years, give or take. And the first 2 years were pretty good. You can go back and you can actually find a lot of those old episodes. And I think they were pretty good. As things went on, though, we would... Because she was looking to get more notice, to be bigger than what we were. To help try to get ad revenue and ways to pay for it, because it was expensive to run all that kind of stuff, right? It is. It's expensive. I do all that stuff on my own now. It's not cheap. So I would make suggestions. We'd talk to different people, and we had partnerships with multiple people over that time, and they didn't pan out. And me not knowing the details of some things, I just assumed that people just didn't want to follow through. So 2 years in, we decided, hey, I'm going to have my own show on this network, because we were building it from just the single show to being a network of shows. I had the idea for a show called The Ambient Web, which was, it would feature ambient, drone, instrumental music, things that you could sit to study to, or you could sit to just chill out to, or you could sleep to. It was a very particular kind of show. It didn't have a lot of talking. It had a minimum of talking, and was mostly music. And which you can listen to. I got 3 episodes. I got 3 episodes in. You might think, well, that's not very many, and you'll find out why in a minute. I got 3 episodes that you can listen to, the first of which on the Patreon page. You go to ltatm.net and look for the LTATM membership, and you'll be able to go to the Patreon page. It's absolutely free. This is not a plug to get you to pay for anything. The page is free. You can join the Patreon, don't pay anything, and you can listen to all kinds of stuff, like these lost episodes that I'm talking about. And for the main Let's Talk About the Music interview show, we had sponsors and things that we would do. We would play little commercials, right? Because that's what you do as a podcast, as a radio show. You play the commercials because people are paying you to do that. So we would play them at specific times throughout the main show. The ambient web was supposed to be commercial free because of what it was. You don't interrupt an ambient instrumental track that gets people chill and relaxed with a 30-second ad for something, right? You don't. So, and I didn't think much of it. I pitched it like that. I was like, yeah, it's going to be commercial free. She didn't like it. She very much did not like it. So, and by the 3rd episode, it came down to threatening, where she said, if you do not put these in your show, then I'm going to have to do something about it. And I said, I'm not putting them in my show. So she soft fired me. She said, you need to take a month off. You're taking a month off to think about it. It's basically like, you're in timeout. And that's the first time I saw her for how she was. She's never changed since then. She'll say she has, but the evidence is still there. She has never changed. I said, all right, fine. So I took the month off. I basically assumed that it wasn't going to be a month. I assumed it was going to be permanent. Didn't listen to the shows. Didn't talk to her. The shows started to suffer because it had become a really popular, really good show because of the dynamic that we had. There were 2 of us. We had different personalities. We talked to the guests differently. It was an important and integral part of the show to have both of us there doing what we do. So the show started to suffer. And so she asked me, she was like, hey, are you ready to come back? And I said, yeah, I guess so. I'm ready. And she said, well, okay, I'll consider bringing your show back too if you put the ads in it. And I said no. I said, I'll come back, but I'm not going to bring the show back with the ads. So that was it. After 3 episodes, the show was done. It never came back. And I was more wary then, because when I did come back, I also started to pick up on patterns. The people that we'd tried to get to work with us before, she's the one who ran them off. She would get to a point where they would want to be more involved, and they would be pitching ideas, and they would be thinking we're all part of one big team. And without me knowing, she'd flip out, she'd throw a fit, she'd accuse them of something, of sabotage, or of trying to go behind her back or doing something, and she would chase them off. And she kept that up for the next 2 years that I was there. So the entire time, and I didn't realize it until I'd had my own experience about how she was. And we were trying to do... One of the last things we were trying to do was she wanted to have this festival where she would invite everybody that's ever been on the show, and if they couldn't come, they couldn't come, whatever, because some people were from different countries, but she wanted to invite everybody that could come to do stage performances, and we would do interviews live, and we would meet in person, because she lived on the West Coast, she still does, and I lived in Ohio, right? she had said early on in the first couple of years that she wanted me to be her business partner. And I was resistant to it because I don't like handling other people's money. And that's what it was. It was her money at the time, paying for different things. And I didn't want to be involved with paying. I didn't want to be connected to other people's money. It made me uncomfortable at the time. Okay? But we're talking about this festival thing, and we have a Patreon page. We did. It's not there anymore, but we had it for the show. And I had pitched the ideas for it. I said, this is what we do. As people sign up for the tiers, that gives us the money we need to pay for products that we can send them, and it'll become self-sustaining. The more people that sign up, the more we'll be able to pay for everything, and it'll sustain itself. Right? I found out for this festival that some of the things she was doing was before even then she had tiers in the Patreon for musicians to pay for slots on the radio show to have their music played. That's pay to play. That's illegal. Okay. And she also had those ridiculous prices on things. She had an option for somebody to pay $13,000 for a banner with their name on it to hang at the festival. And the festival hadn't even gotten here yet. I still had no idea how she was going to pay for everything. She said she had vendors lined up. She had all the stuff. And she didn't have that kind of money. She wasn't rich. She still isn't. She lived in an RV for a while. She was homeless for a while. This is all public record. This is all things that she has said, so it's not like I'm bullying or bringing up personal info that people don't know. I'm not spilling her personal info because people know this. She's said this publicly on social media. She didn't have the money to cover all this stuff, and I didn't know how she was going to pay for it. And it was around this time that Rob, my buddy Rob, you know him from This Uncanny Earth, that's when he pitched the idea for This Uncanny Earth. He said, hey, you know what? I want to do a radio show. I want to do a radio show about paranormal stuff. Can you help me with it? Because I know you've been doing this for a while. Because I'd been in the business for a while. I'd been around the equipment. I knew how to run the boards at that point. I knew what I was doing. So I said, well, why don't I have you do that on the Let's Talk About the Music network? Because, again, I was still trying to push the network so that we could diversify and bring in a lot of new listeners. And he didn't really care for the idea at first. I should have listened. I'll give him that. I should have listened. But he was like, all right, well, we'll go with it. And he and this lady, they don't get along. They're just different personalities. It's not anybody's fault. It's just they don't get along. But, so we did the first couple episodes of This Uncanny Earth. And she got after us about the ads, about links, about all these different things that were just basically red tape things. And I said, don't worry about it. I got it under control. Don't worry about it. And I told him, don't worry about it. If she gets after you about stuff, I've got it under control. I'm the go-between. We're going to make this work. Everything's going to work out. And then one day she just flipped and she told him to get off the network. She basically fired him, even though he wasn't an employee of hers. He was somebody who was, I'd brought him in. It was my responsibility to keep everything going. And I was still, I woke up to all of this. And I sent her a message. I was like, this is unacceptable. You can't just throw people off like that. This is it. The whole point of this is to try to build. And she came up with some lame excuse about it. And I was like, fine. That's enough. We're leaving. We're both leaving. We're all done. And I left. I cleared off all of my episodes of what I'd been doing. I'd had another show at the time that I'd started when I was in my off time called The Dirty Rotten Weekend, which was a music show. I would just play music from people I found off of that music submit service. Give them exposure and things like that. Talk a little bit in between. Classic radio sort of stuff. And when I first went back, after my soft firing, I went back, I brought the show with me. And but after that, I was like, no, So I took it off the network, and she exploded. She couldn't handle it. She canceled the festival, which other people had been working very hard to make a reality for her. People had been giving their time and their money to do this for her, and she just abruptly pulled the plug on everything, leaving a lot of people up in the air, in the lurch. And so she shuts everything down. Me and Rob move on our own with This Uncanny Earth. And a couple of people involved in the festival, the ladies from another show on YouTube that's active right now, called the Musicians Hangout, tried to keep her show going because she said, I can't do this anymore. I need a break. I'm having a mental breakdown. So she stepped away, and they used her branding to continue the work. They were like, we want to have something here for you when you come back. She flipped out on them. She accused them of stealing. She accused them of trying to push her out and things like that, which she does to everyone. She accuses everyone of stabbing her in the back, taking things that she made, stealing her material. It comes true eventually for everybody, every single person that works with her. And I apologize if this is coming off as like an accusatory bitch fest, but this is all truth of things that have happened. So those ladies start doing their own show called The Musicians Hangout. It's on YouTube. It's still there. They're on, I don't remember what season they're on, but they've got like tons of episodes. They're doing fantastic. They've hosted award shows out there. They're great. They're big in the scene. Check them out. Musicians Hangout on YouTube. Please subscribe to them. They're great friends of mine. Because after the fact, they came to me and they're like, hey, we saw what she was like. We didn't understand at first when everything went down, but now we know. And me and Rob went on to do This Uncanny Earth. We're 300 plus episodes going. And so that was another time where, and the original Let's Talk About the Music show started to get successful. We had hundreds of listeners per week. It was weekly. We were really making an impact. We were on a roll. And then she flipped and she destroyed everything. And she has never recovered from that, by the way. There is still a Let's Talk About the Music out there, but it's kind of pathetic. It's pretty awful right now. It's not good. I don't want to say anything bad about the musicians that she has on, but she's not great at it. She's not good at it at all. And she's never going to be good at it at this point. So in the meantime, like I said, me and Rob started doing This Uncanny Earth, and I started doing other things. I briefly brought back the Dirty Rotten Weekend, but my heart wasn't in it. I wasn't into doing the local music thing anymore, unfortunately. And eventually I started doing the Uncanny Spirits Club, which me and Rob had done first. We would just review alcohol stuff. And then we didn't have time to hang out every so often, so I would start doing it myself, and I kept it up solo, and it's still going to this day. I started doing Twitch gaming, which of course I do to this day. I've got my game streams on YouTube, and that built the foundation. My YouTube originally was just music videos for my music, and nobody paid any attention. But now that I've got the drink reviews, I've got the game play, I've got all that kind of stuff, people started taking notice. It took all of that time throughout my history of all of that. All of the albums I put out, that first radio show. This Uncanny Earth has a pretty steady stream of listeners. It's kind of in that middle area where it just needs a little bit of a push, a little bit of a nudge to get really rolling, and we're working hard on it. But when I just started focusing on all of my own stuff and just really hitting it hard, I started to see the dividends. And that's when I started doing this podcast. I started with Let's Talk About This, which was the family-friendly one. That's up to 55 episodes now. I admit I've been a little lax with updating that, but I need to get back because my daughter likes to listen to that. It's family-friendly. There's no bad language. All the topics are fun. You can check that out. Let's Talk About This on Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And I've got this one, which was, I tried a few other things. I tried doing just a purely wrestling review show, and then I tried doing some other stuff, but eventually I've rolled it all into one thing, which is the show. And I pay monthly promotion on YouTube, and I don't pay for subscribers. I don't do a service that gets like bot subscribers and things like that. I pay for my videos to show up in YouTube ads. I pay for advertising space on YouTube. And that's been huge for my growth. It's really helped a lot. And also I'm getting a lot of attention on this podcast too. I'm surprised by how much people are really enjoying it, to be honest. I'm 19 episodes. This will be 19 episodes in. And the numbers keep going up, and I'm very appreciative. I really am. The amount of time I've been doing this, the amount of years I've been entertaining or trying to entertain people, from just being a musician to being on that first edition of LTATM to this Uncanny Earth to now. It's been a heck of a journey, and it's only going up from here, and I'm just thankful and appreciative of everybody that's still listening, even to this episode that's gone past the hour. Because, of course, the new LTATM is Let's Talk About the Madness. And you could conceivably say, well, you only took that because you're mad at her about whatever. And I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I don't want her to use it or to profit off of it anymore, because she makes money off of people under false pretenses, and she refuses to give up on that. Through the entire time that I was there, once I finally found out what she was like, she was making money off of people and not delivering promises. She was charging people for premium placement on the website, on the show, you know. And every time she's tried to revive it, she's done the same thing. She's followed the same pattern, which is why I decided, hey, you know what? Fine. That's unethical. That's unfair for people who work hard to have to pay you for these kind of things without them knowing that whether you're even going to help them or not, because she hasn't gone anywhere. And so I took the acronym, the LTATM acronym, and now it's Let's Talk About the Madness. And because it's an acronym that's not easily identifiable to a single brand, it's not something that can be copyrighted to the point where you can prevent other people from using it. If I were to use the entire phrase, Let's Talk About the Music, I could conceivably be in a lot of trouble. And right here, I'm using it here as this basically counts as fair use, because I'm talking about historical references. This is all public things, right? I'm not saying don't go listen to that, it's a horrible brand. I'm not saying that. You can listen to whatever you want. I don't approve of it, but you can listen to whatever you want. And someday it might be something great. I don't know. I personally doubt it, but that's my personal opinion. What I am saying is that now, Let's Talk About the Madness is what my idea of LTATM stands for. And I'm going to push that as far as it can go, because it's been successful. We've got the website, we've got the web store, we've got so many things revolving around it now, and it's succeeding. It is succeeding where its earlier incarnation did not. And what's the difference? Me. Inject my ego a little bit. Me. The difference is me making it work. And it is working. And I appreciate everybody out there supporting and helping it work. So, what have we learned? We've learned that I failed as a musician. More or less. I did not get mainstream success. I never have. I probably never will. And it's okay. I'm not upset about it. It's alright. I'm not going to cry about it and be like, I'm not as interested in doing that as much as I used to be, but I'm getting back into the swing. You might see another Spider in the Hall album in the near future, and if I can sit around to actually get to it. There's a lot of circumstances involved with that, but I failed at that. I had moderate success in drink reviews and game videos, but now that I've done so much stuff, I've got so much going on. I've got the podcasts, I've got the record label, we've got this Uncanny Earth. Everything is just, I've said the word before, and it's the same thing. It's a juggernaut. It's just going to keep on going, and it's going to keep on growing, and it's going to keep on advancing. And I have gotten to the point where I am succeeding. Am I successful? I don't know. Depends on your definition. But I am succeeding. At long last. Because of effort, because of not giving up, because of adapting to circumstances, and for putting a little bit of money into it, because you have to. You can't just sit back and not invest. If you're going to do anything like this, you have to invest some money in it somewhere. And I've put it into advertising and upkeep of my various programs that I need to use, various software and apps. And it's seeing dividends. It's getting there. I'm very close to breaking even. Making a profit, who knows? We'll have to get back to that, I guess. But I am very close to breaking even, which is pretty darn good. And that's the lesson. That's the lesson. The lesson is that even if you've failed at it in one capacity, then you adjust your priorities, you try something else, and you keep on going. Continually banging your head against a wall trying to do the same thing forever is unlikely to get you where you need to go. And that's a lesson that some people, like people I've worked with in the past, they don't seem to get. They keep trying to do the same thing, and it isn't working. It's not working. You got to be different, and they can't be different. And I don't understand why they're so resistant to it. But I've changed what I've had to do. I've adapted, and here we are. So anyway, thank you for listening to this overlong episode and hear me rant and rave about historical things once again. Some of the timelines for some of this was all over the place. I wasn't exact on various things because my memory for time and for years is kind of iffy. I know that certain events happened. Pardon me, my voice is breaking here. I know that certain events happened, but I'm not always clear when they happened in relation to other things. It runs together. I'm getting old. But thank you for listening. I'm going to get going, have a drink, play some games. And we'll see you next time. I don't know what the episode is going to be next time. I might get back to a more standard episode than some of this nostalgia that we've found ourselves in, because we've been kind of mired in the swamp of nostalgia here. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, thanks a lot. Have a good night. I'll see you next time.